Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not protecting my girlfriend from my parents and defending my dad? My parents have a bit of an unusual marriage. My mom is an engineer, petroleum, and my dad is a stay-at-home dad. He didn't want to be. He wanted to be a writer, but he never made any money off that and had to stay at home to raise us because my mom was working all the time. He's unhappy staying at home to raise us because he feels less of a man, but he can't contribute any other way. My mom is resentful of my dad never contributing financially, and they now hate each other. They consider divorce a sin, but if they didn't, they would have divorced long ago. My girlfriend is a software engineer and very smart, and I hate to say it, but kinda reminds me of my mom. Very independent and straightforward, but not the nurturing type. She admits she wasn't unsure if she would be a good mom, until she got a dog and said he opened motherly instincts she didn't know she had. My parents live 8 hours away, so she and I went to visit them for the first time recently for the holidays. I told her about their unfortunate life circumstances, but told her not to mention it to them that she knows because my dad is embarrassed by it. At dinner, my dad asked my girlfriend if she knew how to cook and clean and if she knew how to take care of me. She said she did, but she expected me to do equal in the household, and he told her he didn't want his son marrying a strong woman. Different meaning in Mandarin, because they're not good at taking care of their husbands and only know how to make money. I agree it was insulting, but she took it too far by shooting back that at least she can make money and contribute financially to the household and not need her partner to be the breadwinner while hating them for it. My dad was stunned into silence, and then dinner got awkward. I got mad at her when we were alone, and she got mad at me, saying I didn't defend her, and she wasn't going to meekly let him bash her. She said I failed to protect her against my dad, and she was going to tell it like she sees it. I reminded her she wasn't supposed to say she knew my parents' situation, that I told her in private and made her promise to keep quiet, and she snarled back that it was payback for me not defending her. Of course, now she's made my dad hate her and didn't even try to make him get to know her. Comment said, "You the a-hole. I'm sorry your dad is miserable, but his life circumstances are his own fault. He picked a career he wasn't any good at, and instead of figuring out a new plan, he let himself get stuck in a role he resents. Instead of accepting this as his own fault, he is pushing your girlfriend into a sexist role, and she's having none of it. Good for her. You sound as cowardly as your father." Another comment said, "You the a-hole. That's on your dad for not divorcing or being resentful for feeling less of a man. You should not be letting him drag down other women because he hates his circumstances. If you keep defending him and his reasons, then your girlfriend has a red flag on her hands. She's being insulted for her choices in life. If you think that's okay, then you won't have much of a relationship. Your dad's issues are not her issues, and neither are yours. Where would your family be if your mother didn't become the breadwinner? Your dad provided for the family by being a stay-at-home dad. That has value. It's a pity he doesn't see it. Your dad needs help and needs to stop projecting his insecurities on others, and you should not be enabling him." The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for going to my friend's house when my wife told me to duck off? Throw away because I don't want my family members finding out my issues. My, 28M, wife, 27F, is 7 months pregnant. Since she's been pregnant, she's been having a go at me for small things, like if I don't make dinner for her or when I cook her the wrong thing. Before she was pregnant, she was never like this. She was always very sweet. Yesterday, my wife came back from her parents' house, and I made homemade pizza for us. She told me she doesn't want pizza and to cook her something else. I told her if it's quick and easy, I'll make it. She asked for homemade chicken dumplings. I told her I'm not making that because that will take ages. She told me she's pregnant and is craving dumplings. I told her I know you're pregnant, but I'm not making dumplings for you. She started having a rage that I wouldn't cook her something. It was 6 p.m. at night. I'm not whipping out all these ingredients. I told her to make it herself or to not have anything. When I had my pizza, she was sitting on the couch sobbing, saying that I don't love her or the baby. I told her I'll make dumplings tomorrow night for her, but not tonight. She told me to duck off somewhere else. I asked my friend if I could stay the night with him, and he said yes. Packed clothes, and slammed the door behind me. When I was halfway to my friend's, my wife texted me, begging for me to come back, so I told her to duck off like she did with me. So, am I the a-hole? Comment said, not the a-hole. I've had 3 kids of my own. I've been around significant portions of the many pregnancies of my siblings, and yes, hormones are awful, but they do not give a woman a free pass to be abusive and then absolute immunity to repercussions. Maybe you could have worded your response better and told her that no, you weren't coming home because you needed time to cool off, but just because she's pregnant doesn't mean that you don't get to feel upset or hurt by her actions. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for sitting on my husband's lap during Thanksgiving dinner because all chairs at the table were taken? I, F28, have been with my husband, Sean, M33, for 2 years, married for 5 months. Most of his family are decent people, but his mom can be a little bit of a passive-aggressive and tends to criticize me a lot. Sean sees it as her still not getting used to me being around, but I don't know because she treats his ex, Jalissa, good. Mother-in-law says that Jalissa has been around the family for ages, and her past with Sean never affected her relationship with her. Fine, I never minded her attending every holiday and being around till yesterday. We had Thanksgiving dinner at my mother-in-law's house. Sean went there before me, and when I arrived, it was already dinner time. Everyone was seated, and I saw that all chairs were taken. I asked mother-in-law why she didn't save me a seat, and she said sorry, and that one of her granddaughters decided to show up last minute and the chair was taken. I looked at her, then at Jalissa, who was sitting next to Sean, and tried to point out how I was more deserving of her chair since I'm the daughter-in-law. I know I shouldn't have said it, I know. Mother-in-law flat out said that Jalissa is as much family as me, and that it was rude to imply otherwise. Jalissa was nodding confidently while glancing at me. I was so upset I wanted to leave, but decided to just sit on my husband's lap and act as casual as possible. I sat on his lap asking if he was okay with it. Don't worry, I'm petite, he's strong-built. And started eating so casually while smiling and complimenting the food and mentioning to Sean how warm and comfortable his lap was now and then. The table went awkwardly silent. Brother-in-law would try to break the silence and change the subject, but it somehow goes back to being awkward. Mother-in-law and Jalissa were barely eating and were staring at each other, then at me, eyes wide open. Minutes later, Jalissa excused herself to the bathroom, and so did mother-in-law. It was still awkward, but I did my best to focus on dinner. Sean was eating as well. Later, there was just so much tension, and mother-in-law was barely able to speak after Jalissa left. Early, like right after dinner. Sean and I went home, and mother-in-law tried calling, but then called Sean and texted me saying what I did was inappropriate, and that I ruined Thanksgiving dinner and made it awkward. She said it wasn't her fault chairs were taken, and I could have dragged a chair from the kitchen but acted childishly and made Jalissa and family uncomfortable with how inappropriate I was. Comment said, not the a-hole, but the whole ordeal could have been avoided had your husband done what he should have done and gave you his seat while he went to fetch another one. In fact, he should have already had an empty seat beside him waiting for you. I can't imagine putting my wife in such an awkward situation. Another comment said, your husband should have got up immediately and either fetched the chair for his wife or given you his while walking around, making it all as awkward as possible. Or he could have taken one of the empty chairs when the women went to the bathroom. Musical chairs could be the new family tradition. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for leaving when my mom told me to move my car so her neighbor's daughter can park in her driveway? Some backstory, my mom has always wanted a daughter. Instead, she ended up with 2 sons and 6 grandsons. 16 years ago, a young woman with a 2-year-old daughter, let's call the daughter Lily, moved across the street from her. She was a single mom and didn't have any family in the area, so my mom offered to help take care of the little girl while her mom worked/studied. Over the years, she's become an adoptive mom/grandmother to this woman and her daughter. She was there when the woman married her husband and had 2 more girls together. She's very close to the whole family, but especially Lily. My mom was born and raised in Italy. My dad was French. My brother and I don't speak any French or Italian. Lily is not only fluent in French and Italian, but she knows more about the culture than me or my brother, and she knows all of my mom's recipes. My mom also helped pay for her private school tuition because she doesn't like the public schools in the area. Lily, my son, and my nephew graduated from high school in May. My son and my nephew each got a card and a check for $300. My mom took Lily to Europe for 8 weeks over the summer. I got to my mom's house with my sons last night. We planned on staying for a few days because we live 8 hours away. I was parked in the driveway, then right before dinner my mom told me I needed to move my car so Lily could park in her driveway. I said Lily could park on the street, but my mom said no, the driveway is Lily's spot and I have to move. So I told my sons to get our bags and we went home. My mom has been calling me since last night asking me to come back and saying I overreacted to being asked to move my car. I refused, and my sons and I are celebrating without her, but I'm starting to wonder if I was the a-hole for leaving when my mom told me to move my car. Comment said, not the a-hole. As we said around here, this isn't about the Iranian yogurt. This is a reaction to years of feeling second class to Lily because, as sons, you somehow did not fulfill your weird desire of your mom's preferred genitals. I'm sorry you've all felt this way for so long. It's hard to watch your mom seemingly show someone else more affection than they do to you. Have you ever actually laid it all out for her like you have here for us? Another comment said, not the a-hole. Was it extreme and not even about the spot? Absolutely. However, it sounds like your mom has favored some random human over you, so I'd probably harbor resentment as well. OP is just as valid as every other person that comes here and gets backed for being put second to a golden cold, if not more so. This isn't even her kid. The last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to stop saying my mother kidnapped my son? I, F, 32, emigrated to my husband's, 39, home country 5 years ago, and we have a beautiful son who is 3. My mother, 52, has always been controlling, and frankly, is a typical narcissist. She was dead against my moving, and was even more upset when I had my son as a combination of her husband being terminally ill in the pandemic. She couldn't meet my son until this week, and she's complained bitterly about how we cheated her out of her special time with her first grandson. I wasn't exactly excited about her coming to visit us, but my husband convinced me we should try to let our son have a relationship with her. Well, from the moment she arrived, she complained. Our house is too small, the garden is overlooked, etc. She complained my son doesn't speak much English and so she can't communicate with him. She complained that my son didn't want to hug her, that he wanted to stay with his paternal grandmother. My son spilt a drink and she shouted at him. We're taking the gentle approach, so I told her not to do that and why, and she lost it, telling me I have no idea how to raise a kid. I told her she needs to respect my methods or she can leave. She stopped, but the whole rest of the day you could tell she was furious. That night, my son was having one of those nights where he just isn't going to sleep through. My poor husband also had an IBS flare-up in the early hours, and we realized we had no medication. When my son settled at around 7:30 a.m., I decided to do a quick run to the 24-hour pharmacy to get some medication, leaving son and husband both asleep on the sofa. I was gone for 20 minutes, but when I came back, my mother's rental car was gone, and so was my son while my husband was still asleep. He was as shocked as I was they had gone. Tried my mother's mobile, but no answer. After 45 minutes of me becoming increasingly hysterical, I called the police, who came out very fast, and when I explained as above, took things seriously. 6 hours later, my mother pulled back up and started telling the police, most adults know English here, that I had told her she could take my son out for the day. I'm currently 6 months pregnant, and she said it must be pregnancy brain, which the police seemed to accept and acted like the matter was closed since my son was home safely and showing everyone the toys he'd been bought. I told my mother to leave and that I never want to see her again. She started telling family I kicked her out for no reason, and she can't find a hotel, and they blew up my phone, to which I told them she had kidnapped my son, and I'm going to pursue this with the police. Now I'm being called an a-hole for saying my son was kidnapped when he was just taken on a day trip by his loving grandmother, and that an accusation like this could affect my mother's job as a nurse. Comments said, kidnapping is taking a child out of the custody of their legal guardian without permission or justification. That's literally the definition of what your mother did. She kidnapped your child. There are, a lot of laws against that. And it should affect her work as a nurse. There are rules about nurses not being kidnappers for a reason. They must be able to be trusted with people who are vulnerable, and kidnappers are untrustworthy. Another comment said, not the a-hole. Also, you should press charges and make sure a restraining order is put, cause it's only going to get worse from there. This was a kidnapping of a small child and should be taken with the utmost seriousness. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.